March school board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mrs. Cron, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Vanis Clemens? Here. Mr. Casper?
Here.
Mrs. Cullen?
Here.
Mr. Kraus? Mrs. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Agomo?
Here.
Mrs. Schmidt?
Here.
Mrs. Yardley?
Here.
Dr. Yarnell?
Here. Thank you. The first item is student recognition. Dr. Radigan?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yarnell. As everyone knows, our students continue to excel in many different areas, and we are very proud of them. And at each board meeting now, we are bringing a student or students to you to be publicly recognized. We can take their picture and give them the appreciation that they so deserve. So tonight, our first group is under the direction of Coach Mr. Jacob Grant, and he's going to come up and tell you about the success that our girls swim team recently had. So, Mr. Grant.
Hello. The girls swim team recently got back from Bucknell University. They were up there for the state meet. As a team, the girls took second place with 4 girls. The only team that beat us was North Penn. And they had about 16 girls up there. So it was pretty impressive for the squad of 4 girls. Individually, we had Morgan Scott. She won the 200-yard freestyle. And we had Brittany Weiss. She won the 100-yard backstroke. As a team, as a relay, the 4 girls, they set a state record in the 200-yard freestyle relay and got gold in that. And then they also got gold the next night in the 400 free relay.
Okay, so let's have them. Please come up, girls. I should also point out that Mr. Grant is a new coach to the team, so he's done remarkable with his team in a short amount of time. So let's give all of them a round of applause. Okay, we also have another person to recognize. I would like to introduce our sprint coach, Mrs. Diana O'Brien, to tell you about a recent success of another one of our students.
Thank you for having us here. It's just really exciting to see our student athletes do so well. Our team has really been an encouragement to me. They're hardworking, and to have someone like Corey Peace come along is really exceptional. We get a glimpse of our middle school girls as they're running because we share a track with them, so we get to kind of see what they're doing in the middle school level, but don't really see until they come here. And so when Corey came out in the winter for the winter track season, we knew she was, you know, a good athlete. Her first time out for one of our winter meets, she ran in the 300-meter dash and broke the all-time association record in that event, which is a 30-year-old association. We have over 100 teams as part of that. So it's quite an accomplishment for her to come along first time she ran that event. As the season went on, she was part of our 4x200 relay team, ended up getting 4th place in that in the state meet. And also in the state meet, why we're really here to recognize her is she won 1st place in the 200-meter dash with an all-time Pennsylvania state record for the 200 for both indoor and outdoor, which is exceptional because usually your outdoor time would be faster than your indoor time. And so as a freshman, again, just exceptional, just running. She's spectacular. And she's fun to work with. She's a hard worker. She also came in 3rd place in the 60-meter dash. And just a pleasure to have on the team. And on top of that, she's an honor student with a 4.3 grade point average. So she's a hard worker all around. So it's just nice to have her as a freshman, and looking forward to what this coming spring season brings with Corey and the rest of the girls.
Hey, congratulations to all those students. Great job.
Congratulations and thank you for coming. You're certainly welcome to stay, but I'm sure you may have other things that you prefer to do tonight than watch the board and the audience, so thank you for coming again. At this point, we'll move to questions and comments from guests. The Pennridge School Board welcomes public comment, and according to Policy 903, we remind everyone of the following. Public comment shall be limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise specified by the board. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and note their name and municipality. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer rather than to individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. The speaker may speak once during each comment period. Please note that these sessions are designed for comments. Questions raised and not addressed may be followed up at a later time. When I looked at the sign-up sheet, I saw only one name. That was Mr. Robert Linden. Mr. Linden?
Evening. At the last regularly scheduled school board meeting, I had a question following the meeting regarding the bids for the swimming pool. And I'm looking at the minutes. I don't recall Mr. Casper, who was presiding officer at that meeting, answering the question as 2 bids. I recall that he said we'll get back to you on that. And that brings up the question is, at least what my question is, how do you get back to somebody when you do provide that type of answer?
For a variety of ways. Sometimes it's by email. I will answer your question of the last Facilities or Finance Committee meeting tonight, Mr. Linden. I did review Policy 903 as well as Policy 006. I believe in my reading of it that it does apply, that is Policy 903, to both the committee meetings as well as the full board meeting.
That was another comment.
I know, it was another question. I'm answering you tonight because I did do what I promised I would do. But the 2 venues are either a direct response to the person or by email typically.
Okay, and is there a time limit restraint?
I don't think it's written that there is a time. I think common sense says that it's probably going to be forgotten if it isn't done relatively soon.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Dr. Yarnell, I did sign up.
All right, please come to the podium. Make sure you give us your name, your municipality.
Hi, I'm Brad Snyder, Bedminster Township, and co-president of the Pennridge Music Association. I'm here this evening to address some comments about the band parents and the PMA that were made at the last facilities meeting on February 29th. The comments basically called into question my integrity and the integrity of the PMA with regards to our commitment to make a payment of $1,000 to $1,500 per year for 10 years to support the purchase of the band trailer. First, let me state that it has always been my intention and the intention of the PMA to make our trailer donation. But if you recall, we had a particularly eventful fall with the cancellation of Spectrum of Sound and then our band director going out on extended leave. The PMA, along with Mr. Zaplicki and Mr. Fair, was busy trying to make sure that the marching season for the 155 kids in the marching band continued and was a success. I'll be honest, the trailer payment wasn't the first thing on my to-do list, but it was always going to be paid. I would like the board to recall that the commitment letter that was referenced last month specifically stated that the PMA would not be making the donation if Spectrum of Sound was not held. As you know, due to the papal visit last fall and all the road closings associated with his visit, the vast majority of the groups that were going to attend were forced to cancel, so Spectrum could not be held. I have been president or co-president of the PMA for the last 2 years. One of my goals when I became president was to try to improve the relationship between the board and the district's largest parent group. I'm not sure what purpose was served by having an adversarial relationship between the two groups, but my thoughts were that this doesn't help anyone. Unfortunately, the band parents feel like we are always targeted for criticism, especially by one particular board member. I'm not sure what this school board member has against the band or the Band Parent Association, but the comments last month were petty and uncalled for. People who know me know that I don't take my duties as co-president of the PMA lightly, and I certainly don't give my word lightly. Why throw a group of dedicated parents under the bus in such a public forum without at least having the courtesy to inquire whether or not it is their intention to make the payment? Up to that point, we had never received an inquiry concerning the payment, and we still have received no formal inquiry. The payment has been in our budget since it was submitted to the school district last summer per policy 915. As I mentioned earlier, it has been a difficult year for the band kids. I'm not sure if you're aware, but an instructor for the drumline was never found. So one of the band parents volunteered and stepped up to be the responsible party. She doesn't have a music degree, but she stepped forward so that the program could continue. Otherwise, 18 kids, down from 24 the previous year because the kids were so disillusioned by the lack of support, would have felt completely abandoned and disenfranchised by this district. We are currently being instructed by a 2014 Pennridge graduate who is volunteering his time and commutes from Kutztown University to instruct the kids. He comes down on Tuesday nights and Friday nights and is with the kids on Saturdays to make sure that they can compete. As word of our dilemma leaked out into the drumline community, we received a tremendous outpouring of support from other high schools and drumlines. Abington High School provided us the mat and music for our show. And this past Friday, Abington's drumline staff came up and free of charge helped our kids for 3 hours. Which, by the way, is more time than our current director of bands has spent with the drumline in the last 4 years. After our competition this past Saturday, the Abington staff offered to come up and help our kids one more time before our season ends. I understand that there have been extenuating circumstances around the band this year, but I use this as an illustration to demonstrate what our kids have been through and to their level of dedication to their activity. I think it also illustrates just a few of the issues the PMA has had to deal with this year. With all this being said, I would like to present this check for $1,000 to fulfill our commitment toward this year's trailer donation, and hereby ask that a vote be taken by the board during the meeting on whether the donation will be accepted. This is a good faith payment by the PMA. We're trying to build a bridge and a relationship with you, the school board. Since according to our commitment letter, we do not need to make this payment. I don't know what will happen next year, as I'm sure you're glad my term as an officer in the PMA ends in May. But it is my hope that the shots from the dais against the PMA will end, and that an era of greater cooperation between the two groups will begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Anyone else wish to address the board? If not, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Are there any items on the consent calendar that board members would like to have voted on separately? Yes. Mr. Schmidt.
Letter I would like to have separated into 2 votes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So in this case, we'll make the EDR report letter J, and the superintendent's personnel report will remain as letter I. Any other requests from the board about separating these items? If not, do I have a motion to approve? Let's do items A through H, since there were no comments or questions about those. Items A through H. Do we have a motion to approve those items on the consent calendar?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bergamo. A second.
A second.
Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Moved and second to approve the items A through H on the consent calendar. Comments or questions from board members? I do have a question, and I'm excuse me for, first of all, not having a good voice tonight, and second of all, for the late nature of this comment. There is one large budget transfer in item H. I think, my personal opinion is there should have been, and should be generally, a better explanation on those budget transfers. That one is for some $270-some thousand, so it's really a very large budget transfer. Mr. Daubert, do you have any information, or can you get that information for us at some point in the future? Okay. And I would like to ask, and it's just one board member, but I do think that those descriptions are minimal at best. Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the consent calendar items? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Now, do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's personnel report? Yes, Mrs. Schmidt? Moved to approve that, and do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Casper. Moved and seconded to approve the superintendent's personnel report. Comments or questions from board members? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Lastly, we need a motion to approve the EDR report.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Casper. Moved and seconded to approve the EDR report. Comments or questions from board members? No comments? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Nay.
2 nays? Mr. Regoma? Mrs. Schmidt? Okay. Motion passes 6-2. Thank you very much. Student liaison is next. Mr. Carey is not here tonight, so we will move beyond that. At this point, we will talk about, I think we'll start with item B, the safety committee update. I believe that's something that Mr. Loeffler, you're involved in, correct? And Dr. Lamar.
Good evening, everyone. This is just an update. At our last meeting, remember, we gave you the general outline of what we do with the 2 different committees. I am the coordinator of the Safety and Security Committee. One of the updates is you will see at your tables a poster which is advertising the Internet Safety Program, which is going to be held on Thursday, April 14th, 2016 at 7 o'clock. There will be a message from Dr. Radigan going out along with a copy of this for all of our parents, and we're hoping that the meeting will be well attended. Second thing is just follow-up. MG Tactical, as you're aware, did a safety and security audit of schools. They did a follow-up visit with Mr. Loeffler and myself going around. They will be coming back on the 31st of this month to do an in-service with all the administrators, giving an update, some general comments for things we could look to do to improve safety and security at our buildings, and also work on some scenarios that our people probably have not thought about, dealing with maybe like reunification if there's a problem. It's something that sounds simple, except that the same people who you would expect to direct traffic will be dealing with the emergency at the building. So there's things that we need to start thinking about so we have a better concept of what's going on. So that will be happening at the end of this month. The Raptor security system, which is going to be scanning driver's license, we anticipate that starting a week from tomorrow, the first day we come back from the spring break. So we are working now, and Mrs. Miller is working to get all the information in so that when there's a hit for a child abuser, that will go right to the police, and also various administrators and staff people to help deal with that. So that will be coming out soon, and I think there's a information thing that's coming out from Dr. Radigan very soon as well. The last thing is, if you remember, we passed policy number 824, which is maintaining professional adult and student relationships. We have started the training for all of the personnel in the school district, existing personnel, which is everyone, teachers, administrators, secretaries, custodians, the bus drivers, cafeteria people. They will all be going through in-service so they understand the outlines of how this policy is going to be implemented. Dr. Price prepared a nice bulleted shorter version for it, even though they can all read it, but we will all be giving training. I and my department with the secretary will be meeting tomorrow afternoon, so we're beginning the process of that, and we're working on a system to make sure that all new staff hired by the school district, regardless of their position, will be in service. Thank you.
Good evening. March 8th, we had our safety committee meeting here in the LGI room. We had 12 members present. The only report that was made was from my staff. We did inspect MM Seiler Elementary School. The report came back, the building was in very good shape. The only thing we found were a few electrical outlet covers, little safety covers we put in electrical outlets, were missing in the hallways. So I wrote up a report, sent it to the principal and the facility manager to have them replaced. We had no other reports from anybody out of the other groups, which is a good sign, because if they are reporting, that means somebody was injured in one of the other departments. Old business, Dr. Bavard already touched on. We talked about MG Tactical, and we also touched on the Raptor. So our next safety meeting will be held here in the LGI room on Tuesday, April 5th.
And if I could just add, Dr. Brevard, you mentioned policy 824, the program on the administrative workshop, Mr. Rob Cox, I wanted to thank him, our solicitor. He gave the presentation to all district administrators, giving some history and the laws behind social media. So we greatly appreciate that.
Any questions or comments from board members? Okay, if not, the second item is the right to know request. In January, we had $899 worth of attorney fees, and in February, $5,205.50 worth of attorney fees, which brings us up to date. We also have some outstanding unpaid invoices for the right to know requests. At this point, I'd like to turn my attention to, surprise, surprise, the state budget or lack thereof. I was away for the weekend in Massachusetts, which actually has a budget and is operating on it, strangely enough. Unless something really earth-shaking happened during that time, Pennsylvania is not in that situation of having a budget. And obviously this has brought school districts into a situation of crisis, as we know. The Intelligencer reported on the Quakertown issue a few weeks ago, I believe, and we received questions, we being specifically Mr. Daubert, about that issue. Just to refresh the community, the budget here for the 2015-2016 school year, the one we're operating in without a state budget, but certainly with a local budget, is for $127,408,164. That includes $27,763,335 that is state revenue that was funding part of that budget. The most critical part, in a way, and the part that has been controversial at the state level, has been the basic education funding, which is $9,765,291. Of that amount, Pennridge has still not received $5,045,380. And also there is a building reimbursement subsidy that's outstanding for Pennridge. This is $700,866. We're most fortunate that we are not building buildings currently. That's not true, as you all know, at the Volak, which has just finished, or almost finished, with less the punch list, a $23 million project. Obviously, it's in a sense more crucial there because they receive a higher level of reimbursement than does the school district here in Pennridge. So that's a fairly sizable chunk of money. Also, it should be noted that they get all, or most, I shouldn't say all, most of their money from the 3 sending districts. They do not have a separate revenue line short of things that they sell and that type of thing, which actually are put into a separate account. So where does that leave us? Obviously that leaves us shorter on money than we'd like to be. I'm sure Mr. Daubert probably feels more strongly about this even than I do. But I don't think Pennridge is in crisis yet. What it does mean is that as we get closer to passing the 16-17 budget, which by state law we must pass, a final budget before the 30th or by the 30th of June of this year. As we get closer, it will be important to pass that budget because the cash flow is not what it normally is. And we will have to rely on getting, obviously, tax dollars back to the district sooner rather than later, hopefully, to make sure that the shortfall in the coming year, if this problem isn't straightened out, and who knows at this point whether it will be, I don't think anyone would have guessed that it would go on this long unsolved. If it isn't, obviously, we need to do that sooner than later. So this makes, and my point here tonight is that this makes the passage of a budget very important. And we will be doing that in 2 parts, as always, or really in 3 parts. We've passed one already, which is the proposed preliminary budget, really a placeholder to accommodate the state law. But the important ones are the preliminary budget that will be passed, hopefully, in our May meeting, which is a little earlier than usual. I believe it's the 15th or 16th of May or 18th. And then the final budget will be passed in June, in late June. And that has to be a 30-day window between those 2 for public review. So that becomes an extremely important issue, even more important than normal this year, because of the outstanding monies that the state owes us and we may not receive. But I do want to thank Mr. Daubert for keeping us up to date on this issue, and hopefully one of these days he'll tell us that he has a little more money in our coffers. So thank you very much. At this point, I'll let Dr. Radigan give some more cheerfulness.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yarnell. First, I'd like to thank the West Rock Hill School for the district office meeting room display. A special thanks also to Cheryl McLeod from the Aetna Foundation Charitable Giving Program for a donation of $147.40 to the Pennridge Rams boys baseball team. Our Takes Pride theme for the month of April will be initiative. Students will be reminded that initiative means making decisions and taking actions on your own without the advice or help from others. People who demonstrate initiative take steps to make things happen. Initiative is one of the top qualities today's employers are seeking. Those who demonstrate initiative will be the ones most likely to be hired and promoted. At school and at work, those with initiative will be those most likely to achieve success. Our points of pride for this month. Congratulations to Jimmy Martin, a 5th grader from Grasse Elementary who took 3rd place in the Scripps Regional Spelling Bee, which was held at Penn Central Middle School on March the 12th. 60 school champion spellers from Bucks and Montgomery counties participated in the bee, which was presented by the Pennridge Community Education Foundation with financial support from the Council for the Advancement of Public Education, the Pennridge Percy Rotary Club, the Pennridge Education Association, the Intelligencer, and Tiger Printing Group. Former Pennridge Central students Justin Hess and Evan Kerr visited with all 8th graders in the technology education classes at their old school on March the 8th to demonstrate the connections between the 8th grade course and their current fields of study in engineering at Penn State University. Evan and Justin assisted Mr. Ruckel with a lesson where students designed and built air-powered rockets using straws. Students were asked to apply Newton's laws of motion, which are integral components of the 8th grade science curriculum. They challenged the students to incorporate the iterative design process based on building, testing, evaluating, and redesigning models to produce the desired results. Evan and Justin traced their passions for engineering and design back to Mr. Ruckel's 8th grade class, where they used both truss and trebuchet design engineering. Evan is majoring in aerospace engineering, and Justin is majoring in mechanical engineering. Both are currently sophomores at Penn State University. We appreciate them coming back to help. Speaking of alumni, Karen Kern, class of 1966, Will Lewis, class of 1976, and Louis Riddick, class of 1987, will be inducted into the Pennridge High School Wall of Fame on Thursday, March 31st at 6 p.m. at a dinner in the high school cafeteria. And one more alumni note, very exciting. Matt Baranowski, class of 2011, has been named to the U.S. cycling team and will represent the United States at this summer's Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro. Matt already has 8 national titles to his credit, including 3 at the 2014 USA Cycling Elite Track Championship. team sprint, individual sprint time trial, and K-ring. He turns 23 just 9 days before the opening ceremony in Rio. He finished 5th in sprint and 8th in K-ring at the 2015 Pan American Games. Matt recently stopped by Penn South to talk to students about his racing career and his academic work at Penn State, where he is finishing his degree in electrical engineering. So we are honored that these students think enough of us to come back and to help our students see that they too can aspire to great things. The Pennridge High School debate team of Sophie Savariano, Julia Frederick, Evan Pepper, and Courtney Landis split the competition at the debate at Northwestern Lehigh High School last week and posted a close win against rival Kutztown. This puts the team in 2nd place in the Lehigh Valley Interscholastic Debate Association League and in terrific shape to make a run for the debate finals in April. Earlier, the team swept Saucon Valley and Wilson on both score 2-0 and ballots 6-0 in the first round of the Lehigh Valley Interscholastic Debate Association semifinals. Questioner Evan Pepper, speakers Courtney Landis and Sophie Savariano, and captain and rebuttalist Julia Frederick all had perfect scores on the day. Congratulations to head coach R.P. Norley, his staff, and of course his wrestlers on another remarkable season. Consider a few facts. This is the first time we ever had 4 medalists at states. This is the first time we finished as high as 5th in the state. We collected the 3rd highest total of medals at states. It was the first time we ever had 4 wrestlers with 40 or more wins in one season. Kyle Gentile now has 162 career wins, the most in school history. Matt Parker was just the 5th wrestler in team history to make finals at states. Josh Stillings is our 3rd sophomore to win a medal at states. Before 2012, our school had 9 wrestlers win medals at states. Since then, our wrestlers have won 13 medals at states. Congratulations to our scholar athletes from winter sports teams. Tyler Bauer, swimming and diving. Ryan Galloway, basketball. Stephen Blanchard, wrestling. Jonathan Darlack, track. Benjamin Anderson, bowling. Aaliyah Emery, cheerleading. Sarah Young, bowling. Kendall Guy, swimming and diving. Lydia Constanzer, basketball. And Natalie Mamrol, track. I had the honor of joining with dozens of family and friends in being present for the grand opening of Matt's Market, which has been established in room 365 at the high school in honor of the beloved former life skills student who passed away in January. After Matt Hogan's death, his family suggested donations to the life skills program, which meant so much to the young man, in lieu of flowers. Teacher Maria Gannon used the nearly $1,400 received as seed money to launch the mini market, which offers drinks and snacks to faculty and staff during the school day. As soon as word spread about the market, others pitched in to help. Woodworking students carved a sign in Matt's memory, and technology students created a custom app for use with the cash register. It was truly a team effort. Penn North students recently held a volleyball tournament and penny wars competition, raising $1,074.80 for the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. 2 teams of Diebler 5th graders competed in the STEM Design Challenge sponsored by the Bucks County IU and Thermo Fisher Scientific. Under the direction of teachers Kathy Glon Ryan and Brenda Wanschak, students spent several weeks designing and testing their K-neck structures, which had to be at least 1 meter tall, be capable of holding weight, and be environmentally friendly. Congratulations to Mrs. Wanchuk's Infinity Builders team of Josh Lackner, Sydney Mayfield, Dylan Barekska, and Elena Ronimus for winning 3rd place with their structure. Also at Diebler, Student Council was presented with the Doc Durstein Youth Service Award in recognition of their toy collection drive for Pennridge Fish. They were honored at the Bucks County Association of Township Officials, BCATO's annual convention, where they received a certificate and a check for $100 from somebody I know well, Mr. Dan Radigan, president of the BCATO. Advisor Jane Phillips was accompanied by Student Council President Chase Fisher, Vice President Alan Gordon, and Treasurer Elizabeth Scavuzzo. And lastly, Pennridge is hosting a hiring event for Source for Teachers. As probably many people know, all around the state and around the country for that matter, people are having a tough time getting substitutes. So with the help of Ms. McHale's office, we're going to host this event on Wednesday, April the 6th from 4 to 8 p.m. at the high school. Guests will have the opportunity to speak with managers, ask questions, and even begin their applications. Positions available are for teachers, instructional assistants, custodians, clerical personnel, and food service workers. That's my report this month, Dr. Yarnell. A lot of good things happening.
Thank you. At this point, we'll move to committee reports. The first of those will be the Activities Committee. Mrs. Yardley.
Okay, thank you. The Activities Committee met on March 9th, 2016, and I have one motion. I move to approve the MOU between Pennridge Board of Education and Pennridge Educational Support Professionals Association implementing a 4-day summer work week for the period of June 20th, 2016 through and including August 5th, 2016, should the student year end by June 16th, or for the time period of June 27th through and including August 5th, 2016, should the student year end between June 20th and June 24th.
Thank you. Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Thank you. Mrs. Gullet. Moved and seconded to approve the MOU between the Pennridge Board of Education and the Pennridge Educational Support Professionals Association. Comments or questions from board members? Mrs. Yardley?
I just have a comment that by closing the schools for that 1 day a week, the district saves about $15,000 each year.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mrs. Yardley?
Okay, the next Activities Committee meeting is scheduled for May 4th here. Thank you.
Thank you. Curriculum Committee. The Curriculum Committee met on March 14th, 2016. It was a short agenda. There were only 2 items on the agenda. Tonight we have one motion resulting from that. The motion is to approve a request from Mrs. Peg Volak. She's a second grade teacher at Grasse Elementary, and she is wants to pursue a DonorsChoose Grant for 1 20-pack of Cubelets for her second grade class. Those Cubelets are used for as a robotic construction kit that encourages self-directed learning, curiosity, and the power of magnetic forces to interact and react to create a mobile robot. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Moved and seconded. Comments or questions on the motion? Not. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. The next Curriculum Committee is scheduled for April 11th, 2016. Facilities, Mrs. Schmidt.
Thank you, Dr. Yarnell. The Facilities Committee met on February 29th. There are 2 motions tonight for facilities. The first is a motion to obsolete items. They're listed A through G on the agenda.
Do we have a second to that motion for the obsolete items?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Casper. Moved and seconded for the obsolete items list. Comments or questions for board members? Not. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mrs. Schmidt?
The second motion is to accept bids for the 2016 capital improvement summer projects. There are 7 different bids on there totaling $1,612,705.
Thank you. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded by Mrs. Schmidt and Mr. Casper. Comments or questions on the motion to accept the 2016 capital improvement summer projects bids? None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Schmidt?
The next Facilities Committee meeting is scheduled for April 4th, 2016.
Thank you. We'll move to finance. Mr. Casper?
Thank you. The Finance Committee met on February 29th. There are 8 motions tonight. First motion, number 1, A through F. Contracts that have all been reviewed by the solicitor and approved.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion for contract? Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Moved and seconded to approve the 8 contracts listed on the agenda. Comments or questions from board members? Not? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Casper?
Thanks. Thank you. The second motion is to approve the settlement agreements identified 2016-31, 2016-32, and 2016-33.
Thank you. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Moved and seconded to approve the settlement agreements. Comments or questions from board members? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Casper?
Thank you. Third motion is to adopt the Upper Bucks County Technical School 2016-2017 budget.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Mrs. Schmidt. Moved and seconded to approve the UBCTES 2016-27 budget. Comments or questions from board members? I will simply remind people that this is a very good budget for Pennridge because it represents a decrease of about $225,000 to our budget. Not necessarily quite so good as I mentioned before for the UBCTS, but this is according to our current rules. This is how the budget fell out. I'd like to urge all the board members to vote for this, in part because it does matter whether you vote yes or no or abstain. Only the yes votes count toward the budget. My guess is that it will be approved this year, but we should never guess. We should try to make sure it gets passed. So any other comments or questions about this budget? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. Mr. Casper?
Thank you. Fourth motion is to approve Steve Spindler cartography for map development at a cost of $2,530 and annual maintenance of $350.
We have a second to that motion.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Scull. Moved and seconded to approve the Steve Spindler cartography proposal. Comments or questions from board members? Not? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Casper.
Thank you. Motion 5 is to approve the Rico copier device master lease agreement, the master service agreement, the product schedule and service order for a 60-month term beginning July 1st, 16 through June 30th, 2021, totaling $1,244,624.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Moved and seconded to approve the 5-year copier lease agreement. Comments or questions from board members? Mrs. Venus Clemens.
Yes. First, I want to thank Mr. Dalbert for the extensive work that he did on this, bringing in the copier. I mean, he really went above and beyond in making sure that he analyzed to bring us the best deals possible. And he went even further to negotiate to bring it down another $27,000 since the last meeting. So I appreciate all of his efforts. That being said, we were presented with 3 options. 2 of those options were from the same company, and it includes the same exact equipment and it includes the same maintenance. The only difference is one is $32,000 more, and instead of having to call the maintenance person to come and work on our copiers, the maintenance person will be at our school 40 hours a week on a full-time basis. I understand the importance of the copiers, and I understand the urgency in them needing to be working properly. However, I don't feel like we are getting anything more from having the guy here as opposed to calling him and then having him drive to the school. And my concern is we have budget issues and we have higher priorities right now. The last meeting we were talking about the class sizes, and I think that that's something that's really important. And I just want us to make sure that we're focusing, that all the extra money that we spend goes to the right places with the budget crunch that we have. My feeling is that one of the arguments that was made was if we have a paper feed jam and you have to call someone and it may take up to 4 hours for someone to get there, you could call the person who would be right there. But, if I'm at Divler and I have a paper feed jam, I'm not going to, and I have to get back to my students, I'm not going to walk down the hallway to the office, have the office call the maintenance guy, who happens to be over at Grasse Elementary, wait for him to drive from Grasse Elementary to Divler Elementary. By the time he gets there, I'm already, I don't have time to do my copies. I would just look at the 3 pictures that show me how to take a paper feed jam out myself and fix it, and then finish my copies so I can get back to my classroom in time. The elementary schools have 3 copiers, the middle schools have 5 to 6 copiers, the high school has 21 copiers. I think in a 4-hour window, it's not unreasonable to be able to get to one of those other copiers and finish your copies quickly before the person would get there. And again, it's a 4-hour window. That just means they'd be there in less than 4 hours. You have that's the maximum. That doesn't mean the guy's going to sit there and wait until it's exactly 4 hours to show up at the school. So the likelihood is it would be less than that. My feeling is that I think that we've had some issues with with the company that we have currently, and I feel like maybe it's a knee-jerk overreaction to go this far because we've had so many issues with the copiers being down and for an extensive period of time. But I think that the company that we're looking at is a good company. The people that were here presented well, and I think that what they're guaranteeing us with that other option is sufficient. I don't feel like we need that additional option, and I respectfully request that the board can reconsider your vote, and I'd appreciate if you would think about putting in the motion for the other option, which I think is a better decision for the district. Thank you.
Anyone else care to comment at this point? No. If not, then I will call the question, and the question is to approve the option as Mrs. Banis Clemens commented for the $1.244 million. So all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 7-1. Thank you, Mr. Casper.
Thank you. Motion 6 is to disapprove the repository sale from the Bucks County Tax Claim Bureau.
Thank you. Do we have a second for this motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Moved and seconded to disapprove the repository sale. I would note that this almost sounds like a double negative, but the way it's put before us is that we would not accept the bid that was made, which was quite low. And I think we discussed this at length in the committee meeting. So other comments or questions for board members? If not, all those in favor of disapproving? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Casper?
Thank you. Motion 7 is to accept the Key Club's request for an exception to the Student Activity Policy Manual for the allowance of a donation to a student's family.
Thank you. Do we have a second to that Key Club request motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Moved and seconded to approve this motion. Comments or questions for board members? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Casper?
Thank you. Motion 8 is to approve the 2016-17 advertising of bids and RFPs A through G.
Thank you. Do we have a second to that motion? Thank you, Mr. Smith. Moved and seconded to approve the advertising of bids and RFPs for the items A through G. Comments or questions for board members? Oh, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Casper?
Thank you. The next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for April 4th, 2016.
Thank you. The intermediate unit, Mrs. Miller.
Thank you, Dr. Yarnell. We met on March 15th in Doylestown at their location. As part of the special education mini report, we were given a brief overview of the autistic support services the IU provides to students from pre-K through age 21 throughout the Bucks County. Programs are designed to support our students with their academic, emotional, behavioral, social, and communication skills. The program is divided into 3 tiers of support, and each tier level determines the staff needed to meet the diverse needs of these students. Some are actually 1-to-1 ratio. The IU currently has classes in Quakertown, Palisades, Pennridge, Neshaminy, Centennial, Morrisville, Bristol Township, Bristol Borough, and Bensalem, so there's quite a need. Each spring, the IU hosts a student art show and reception. Dr. Scheid was in attendance, so it was nice to see her there. This year's show honored 18 student artists from Bucks County. Their artwork was selected for display in the IU's rotating student art gallery during the 2015-2016 school year. Following, the artwork will be returned to their district with a nameplate indicating that their artwork had been on display at the IU. Ryan Bond, 12th grade student representing Pennridge, was given the assignment to create a self-portrait, then change it to make it unique. It was a dramatic piece with Ryan's image surrounded by bright colors designed to convey his feelings. A portion of his face, namely the right eye, was peeled back in a 3D representation, and it represented peeling away to demonstrate the contrast between who Ryan is on the outside and who he is internally. It was quite impressive, and I do have a copy here, but honestly, in person, it was much more impressive. The brochure doesn't do justice to any of this artwork. At the event, Dr. Mark Hoffman, Executive Director, shared the importance of art programs in our curriculum. He shared that data collected from the College Board show that students who take 4 years of arts and music classes while in high school, on average, score about 100 points better on their SATs. Quite impressive. The College Board recommends the education stakeholders consider art requirements for high school core curricula, high school graduation requirements, and college and university admission requirements in the arts. It is also recommended the inclusion of arts courses in GPA calculations. And I think this is very important in this difficult time of state budgets, district budgets, that we, as a board, need to recognize the importance of these programs and work diligently to maintain them. A reminder to mark your calendars for Saturday, May 14th for the 3rd annual Run, Walk, and Roll 5K fundraiser, which raises money by the IU for the IU. The event starts and ends at the Bucks County IU in beautiful downtown Doylestown, so please come join me. Also, I'd like to share a brochure that the IU assembled, and it has every service known to mankind that the IU offers in one handout. So when we received it, it was hot off the press, and Dr. Radigan, I think he was going to share them with districts. I'm not sure if you received one. So if you're interested, I can do this. But it has everything, every service that they provide. Lastly, there was a comment or a question by the board director from Pennsbury trying to learn from the other board directors how we engage our community in our board meetings. And of course, it was a lively discussion. But it's very important, I feel, that we try to encourage community interaction. So the one district offered Twitter and Facebook as options to generate interest. So I wish we could do more instead of having just a handful of people at our meetings, that maybe we can generate more interest. That's it. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 19th at 7 p.m. and it's held again at the IU in Bucks County, in Doylestown. Thank you, Dr. Yarnell.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. We will move to the Personnel Committee. Mr. Regomo.
Thank you. Personnel Committee met on March 16th, 2016. There's one motion. The motion is to appoint Linda Beeler as database administrator effective on the earliest availability at a prorated salary of $82,000 for the 2015-16 school year.
Do we have a second to this motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Casper. Moved and second to approve the appointment of a new database administrator. Comments or questions from board members? None. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 7-1. Mr. Regomo?
The next Personnel Committee is scheduled to meet May 4, 2016.
Thank you. Policy Review Committee is Mrs. Miller.
Sorry, Dr. Yarnell. Policy, we met on March 9th. Policy 249, bullying and cyberbullying, was discussed, and as Dr. Bavard noted, this policy must be reviewed every 3 years as required by the Safe Schools Act, and the date of review will be noted on the policy. Did you say, Dr.? Thank you. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 4th, 2016.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. A question. Do we keep statistics on the bullying of students in the schools in Pennridge? Whether the policy helps us in any way, I guess, is my question.
We are required to submit a report, which is one of the reasons why this has to be reviewed. It doesn't have to be changed, and my recommendation is that when the state law changes, then obviously Pennridge and the other 499 school districts will revise theirs as well. But we do submit to them all the bullying, harassment, weapons violations, drug cases, alcohol cases that result because they have to be reported to the police and work in cooperation. So there is a report that's submitted to the state and it's approved by Dr. Radigan before it goes in. So at some point, if you'd like me to make a copy of it available to the board, I'd be glad to share it with you. I think it ends up being public information anyway. So it's on the state website for each school district. But if you'd like, I can get one to Dr. Radigan and just so you can look at them so you can see what all they collect. That might be of interest to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Certainly, I would like to see that. At this point, we'll move to the Upper Bucks County Technical School. Mrs. Miller, I understand that you're prepared to do this tonight. Thank you.
Now that I know. Thank you, Dr. Yarnell. The Bucks County Upper Tech met on March 17th. Regarding the renovation project is coming together and expected to come in under $100,000 to $200,000, under budget. And this is a conservative estimate of our savings, so good job. Now that the programs are up and running, users have been asked to look at their areas with a critical eye so problems can be addressed. Also, PICO is coming in April to present an award to the Upper Bucks Tech School in the amount of $18,000 in recognition of the Upper Bucks selection of energy-efficient equipment during the renovations. In the Skills USA District 11 Championships held in February, Upper Bucks VOTEC students brought home a total of 36 medals. 9 of those students are advancing to the state competition in Hershey in April. 8 of the 9 are Pennridge students. So, did you mention that in your report?
I think that was last month.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Student of the Month was our very own Liam Phelps, who was a 4th-year culinary student. Liam was crowned last year's winner of the Skills USA Challenge and currently works at Barley Sheep Farm in Buckingham. He's planning to, of course, go into culinary when he graduates. As you recall, the adult evening program was curtailed 2 years ago due to concerns with safety, security, and profitability. During that time, however, they were doing emission control testing for automotive. In revamping the program, Upper Bucks is looking to get the right staff into place to make the program profitable and relevant in order to better service the community with professional versus hobby focus. Bucks County Community College has approached Upper Bucks to rent space or work collaboratively to develop programs. The household hazardous waste collection is slated for June 25th by Bucks County Recycling. It will be held in the VOTEX parking lot from 6 a.m. through 5 p.m. And finally, the open house held on March 3rd was a huge success with more than 1,000 community members in attendance. The night included a ribbon cutting, tours, speeches, and show and tell session throughout the building. Our next meeting, sorry, I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 21st.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. We will now move to technology. Mr. Casper.
Thank you. The Technology Committee met on March 14th. That was our first meeting in quite a while. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 11th, the same night as the curriculum meeting. And I think we'll be having a little more regular meetings this year now that you have everybody put in place. So it was a good meeting, I thought, that one, and looking forward to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to Act 48. Mrs. Dana Clemens.
The Act 48 committee met on March 10th, 2016. We went over a draft of the Professional Development Needs Survey. It was presented and discussed, and everyone was able to share feedback on things that they would like to add, take away, change. There was also discussion on Act 80 days and looking at other districts and other counties and how they use those days. Dr. Price is going to get additional information on how they're used in schools in Montgomery County. That was one that we hadn't looked at. There's a window closing that was discussed that teachers need to get